Part 82. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyubuletin Chigwa. Chapter 816. On the horizon. The mighty army of ghosts stopped. At the end of their sight, a small town that looked poor, backward, and dilapidated came into view. The paint on the building is peeling, the ground is pitted, the layout is simple, the tall buildings are low, and there is no sign of prosperity at all. It looks like a slightly larger village in the Middle Ages. Saw this scene. The 8 knights from the noble families who were accompanying them all showed arrogance and contempt. Nothing else. It's too poor here. I'm afraid I won't even be able to get a few pieces of oil or water. No wonder it was chosen to be the territory of the 4th prince. Only such a bitter and cold place could be worthy of the absurdity of the 4th prince in the royal city. They really couldn't imagine what contribution the 4th prince could make in such a 3-star supernatural place where even ghost kings were scarce. They couldn't even imagine that the 4th prince could use such a territory to fight against elite divisions like them. Now it seems that the 4th prince has probably given up resistance, as the newspaper said. It's a pity that the indigenous people here need to pay the price for what the 4th prince did. Go, find someone to tell the 4th prince that his behavior has seriously violated the rules of the Southern Territory. I have to send troops to conquer and seek justice for Count Ano. Come out and surrender now. He will not be harmed at all, and neither will we, according to the prince's specifications, send him back to the royal city. Marquis Lanja waved. After all, he is a prince, so he still needs to have the proper etiquette. Moreover, the Duke does not intend to harm the 4th prince. He just wants to use this opportunity to let the royal family understand that the interests of the nobles are inviolable. Even if they are of royal blood, they will never compromise as long as they infringe on everyone's common interests. Of course, getting rid of the 4th prince is also one of the goals. The purpose is to treat it as a ticket to join the king's trial and wait for a price. My lord Marquis, I am willing to go. One player seized the opportunity and shouted immediately. His ID is Eddie, level 54, is a member of the Holy See organization, and is acquainted with Adolf. The current lineup of Southern players is also headed by him. Marquis Lanja glanced at it and nodded. Under normal circumstances, the person who can act as an envoy must be the personal guard around him, but this would place too much importance on the other party. Although the 4th prince cannot be harmed, it does not say that he cannot be humiliated. The 4th prince caused them to lose profits, so why not take the opportunity to strike a chord? To ask a soldier who is not as good as the Ghost King to report the news is naked contempt. See this. Eddie's face lit up. He ran over in a hurry. However, before he could reach the gate of the border town, sudden changes occur. I saw ghosts appearing constantly in the border town, one after another. They formed a line. As more and more ghosts came out, the queue became 2 rows, with people standing very densely next to each other. In the hands of these ghosts, there were still stick-like objects that looked like spears, but the tip of the spear was not seen. The end position was like a black hole-like pipe. The caliber was not large, but it was extremely deep. Eddie saw this. Suspicion flashed through his heart. Is this thing some kind of standard supernatural weapon? Why does he always feel that this thing looks familiar? Before he could figure it out, 2 figures walked out of the team in the border town. One male and one female. The woman was dressed in a neutral men's attire, with long ice blue hair neatly tied behind her back. Her delicate and charming facial features revealed a coldness that only a ghost could possess. The man has an uplifted figure, with long golden hair cascading down his shoulders, and handsome and distinct facial features, especially a pair of dark golden eyes, which are even more mysterious, making him know that he is extraordinary at a glance. Just the first glance. Eddie was able to identify the man. One of the heirs to the royal family of the Eli Empire and the 4th prince. but strangely, he saw a blood-stained hemp rope floating on the fourth prince's wrist. This unique feature made him feel a little unusual, as if he had seen or heard of this kind of decoration. Stunned, Eddie was about to speak. Unexpectedly, the fourth prince in the crowd spoke first. "Kill Eddie." He froze. Then all the dead souls emerged. "Damn it! You humming don't play by the rules. When two armies are fighting, the envoy will not be killed. Don't you understand this principle?" In panic, Eddie immediately yelled, "Your Highness the fourth prince, I am here to convey the instructions of the Marquis. It is useless even if you vent your anger and kill me. The Marquis said that as long as His Highness surrenders, you will not receive any injured, he can still be sent back to the royal city with the specifications of a prince." He knew that Marquis Lanja could hear this sound. Once he dies, Marquis Lanja will assume that persuading him to surrender has failed and he will directly launch an attack. Hear the words. Shen Jian looked calm and grinned, "Whether it's useful or not, you'll find out if you kill him. You just lost a life. What I lost was trouble. Damn it! There's something wrong with your three views. Such a disregard for human life." Eddie's face turned green. He suddenly discovered that the fourth prince seemed to be planning to resist, instead of surrendering in fear as he imagined. In this case, his life was completely in the hands of others. Then, Eddie broke into cold sweat and said, "Your Highness, when two armies are fighting, don't kill the envoy. Don't you understand this rule?" Shen Jian smiled even more wildly, "Rules are made by people, and I am also a human. Why, I can't make new rules. When the two armies are fighting, the first one I kill is the envoy." The words fell. Shen Jian raised his hand. The queues formed two rows, and those who stood next to each other also raised the barrels of their guns and pointed their dark muzzles forward. That moment, Eddie didn't have time to think so much and subconsciously retreated back. Marquis Lanja also stared at the scene with a gloomy expression. He waved his hand. The 10 Abyss-level Ghost Kings immediately used the Ghost Domain, and with one sprint, they passed Eddie and rushed into the direction of the border town. Marquis Lanja didn't care about Eddie's death, but if someone killed his envoy in public, it would undoubtedly be a slap in the face in public. He wanted to see what the fourth prince was up to that he was actually trying to resist. Did he think that just by relying on those supernatural beings that looked like Changqiang, he could withstand the impact of an army of 4,000 fierce ghosts? Do not make jokes. He could see that the team gathered by the fourth prince were all old, weak, sick, and disabled, with terrifying levels ranging from red-clothed level to green-clothed level, and there were even miscellaneous soldiers at the white-clothed level. With such a lineup, 10 Abyss-level Ghost Kings are enough to tear them apart. Last second, Marquis Lanja thought so, and Eddie thought so too. The next second, boom! It suddenly exploded with a series of thunderous bangs. Marquis Lanja was stunned. Eddie, who was running 100 meters away, was also stunned. He turned his head and saw the 10 Abyss-level Ghost Kings sprinting away. In an instant, there were dozens of dense penetrating wounds on their bodies. Then he fell to the ground with a thud. In front of the dark hole was filled with smoke. The familiar smell of gunpowder smoke and the action of raising a gun blasted into his brain like a thunder. Gun. Is this horse a gun? Not a long gun, but a thermal weapon firearm? Just for a moment, Eddie's pupils shook violently. Yes. That barrel design and that grip design, aren't they just guns? It is also the oldest type of ancient firearm in medieval warfare, the flintlock. Think of this. Eddie was dumbfounded. God, what did he see? He was in a copy of a horror game that was full of ghosts and focused on supernatural and medieval, and saw hot weapons that only appeared in human history. He also killed 10 Abyss-level Ghost Kings at once. How can this be? How could a flintlock gun be so powerful? The Holy See organization has conducted experiments, and even the most advanced tanks, neutron bombs, and cruise missiles are unable to cause fatal attacks on ghosts above the Ghost King level, let alone the Abyss level. But now, he saw one of the originators of firearms, a flintlock gun with an extremely simple structure, killing the Abyss level Ghost King. That moment, a sense of absurdity swept over me. But before he could fully digest the shock in his heart, not far away, when he saw 10 Abyss-level Ghost Kings being killed, Marquis Lange's face immediately changed, and then he said ferociously, me, the fourth prince tried to resist, and was injured. I'll bear it all, so you can rush forward and tear it all to pieces. With this order, the army of fierce ghosts headed by the 8 top Ghost Kings immediately sprinted away in a burst of ferocious laughter. Naturally, they saw the scene of 10 Abyss-level Ghost Kings being killed, but this was not enough to scare them. It is normal for a royal heir to have some trump cards. But such a trump card obviously cannot be used too many times, and they have a total of 4,000 people. 8 top Ghost Kings, 70 Abyss-level Ghost Kings, 800 Ghost Kings, and more than 3,000 red-level ghosts, all trump cards are useless in one sprint. Because of this, they are fearless. For a while, the scene seemed extremely grand. The other side. Shen Jian watched all this expressionlessly. He was very satisfied with the power of the flintlock gun. After all, the blood used to soak the bullets is a mixture of the blood of the legendary world-destroying ghosts and gods and the blood of several ghosts and gods. In it, a few drops of the blood of the ghosts and gods of him, the king of hell of the 10th palace, are added. To put it bluntly, destroyers, even world-class ghosts and gods, will melt on the spot after taking a few sips. Let the bullets be attached with this supernatural blood, and the power of the shots will be enough to kill ghosts and gods. Shen Jian raised his hand. Fire! The same order was given. The 500 ghost gunmen in the border town simultaneously aimed their flintlock guns at the charging ghost army. Bang 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 bang. With a roar, the 8 top Ghost Kings, who sprinted as fast as possible within 100 meters of the border town, were immediately shot into sieves. Their flesh and blood bodies were as brittle as tissue paper under the bullets mixed with the blood of ghosts and gods. With just one round of volley, the limbs of the 8 top Ghost Kings were mutilated to varying degrees, and their bodies burst into clouds of blood mist. The shrill screams immediately enveloped the battlefield. And it was far more than just the 8 top Ghost Kings who were wailing like this. All the ghosts within the range had received different numbers of bullets. Under the illumination of a burst of metal fire, the corpses of the ghost army fell down like wheat in an instant, and the remaining power was still shot towards the ghosts behind, exploding a pile of blood flowers on their bodies. The blood instantly dyed the land red. No ghost can cross within 100 meters of a border town. The part where the blood meets the yellow earth seems to have become a restricted area for evil spirits. No matter how hard they try, they can't get over it. They can only watch as sparks fly around and fall in this land of poverty relief. This moment, the whole place was dead silent. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyu Buletin Chigua. Chapter 819. This moment, there was dead silence. Blood filled the air, and broken arms and limbs were everywhere. There is a fishy smell in the air. It was like a scene from hell. Within 100 meters of the border town bordering it, there is a clean and blood-free land. Forming an extremely sharp contrast. Horrified. Fear. Creepy. Despair. Heavy emotions intertwined with the remaining army of ghosts, and finally turned into fear. The next second, the team collapsed. The army of more than 3,000 fierce ghosts led by 8 top Ghost Kings, 70 Abyss-level Ghost Kings, and 800 Ghost Kings lost at least half of them under several rounds of bullets from the ghost gun soldiers. The top Ghost King headed by him was dead without a complete body, and his body was in pieces. Even the most professional splicing spies could not put such a ghost body back together completely. In this case, collapse is inevitable. The remaining dozen or so abyss-level Ghost Kings turned around and fled the battlefield with frightened eyes on their faces. How fast he sprinted just now, how fast he can escape now. For a while, the scene descended further into chaos. An atmosphere of despair enveloped the entire venue for the first time. Demon. The fourth prince brought the power of the devil to the ghost world. Dead, all dead. Under such divine punishment, no one can resist it. Run away quickly. The army of fierce ghosts fled one after another, their voices trembling. The other side. Unlike the army of ghosts who fled in rout, the mixed-race male player with the ID Eddie was stunned, and the other 7 southern players were also stunned. Lost. Did they just lose? The charge of an army of more than 4,000 ghosts is enough to sweep through any supernatural land in the southern region. Even the so-called 5-star supernatural land cannot withstand such an impact. But now it is. The fourth prince defeated the enemy head-on. Killed more than half of the evil ghost army at once. And no one was injured. And what the fourth prince used turned out to be a gun. It is also the earliest flintlock gun that appeared in the human world. What's going on with this horse riding? Oh, God. Were they hallucinating? Why did they see thermal weapons that only appeared in human history in a copy of the horror ghost world set in the Middle Ages? Is it possible? Are these 4 princes carrying out an industrial revolution? Otherwise, why would anyone think of making a flintlock gun? This is so unreasonable. It doesn't look like something a copy of a thriller game would have at all. Besides, the power of modern thermal weapons is obvious to all. They have no effect on ghosts above the Ghost King level. Even if a neutron bomb explodes in the face, it will not have any effect. But now, a top Ghost King died under the muzzle of a flintlock gun. Gan. What the hell is this all about? Just thinking about it? The players suddenly saw that there was also action on the fourth prince's side. The fourth prince waved his hand. More than 500 ghost gunmen who were just standing there and firing suddenly took action. While chasing, shooting at the same time. A massacre was launched against the fleeing army of ghosts. Every time a round of bullets slants down, the corpses of dozens of ghosts will fall down, and blood mist will explode. To this, Shen Jian was still not satisfied. Because the pursuit exposed his biggest weakness. That means the overall strength is weak. The 500 ghost gunmen formed in the border town have the highest level of terror, the red code level. Most of them are at the green code level, and a few are only at the white code level. Their movement speed is naturally not as fast as the noble knights. The result is that there is no lethal weapon, but it is unable to kill because it is beyond the shooting range. If this continues, the goal of total annihilation will not be achieved. Think about it. Shen Jian took out a ghost trumpet from his body. He threatened in a sinister tone. Run? Your home is in the south, where do you want to run? Think clearly, if they run away, I will bombard your home next time. If your home is gone, more than 10 years of hard work will be destroyed in one day, and all the beautiful memories will be buried. Your sons, daughters, wives, grandfathers, and grandmothers will all wail in pain during the war, and it is because of your cowardice that the tragedy has been brought back. The more he talks, Shen Jian became more and more excited. His eyebrows were dancing with joy, the corners of his mouth were grinning, and his handsome features were full of strange smiles. It looks like a criminal with no conscience, using the lives of other people's family members to force some good people to submit. A group of players. The fleeing army of ghosts. Hear this. All the ghost teeth are about to be broken. Why don't you understand that no harm will come to your family? Even the most despicable evil ghost would not threaten his family, but the fourth prince did. Too much riding is no longer a thing. It was rumored that the fourth prince was domineering and specialized in raping the women of the people. Now that he saw it, what he said was true. This is a hanging man. Not an evil ghost, but better than an evil ghost. This moment, the ghosts hesitated. Because if Shen Jian really has no morals and chooses to harm his family, then everything mentioned in the appeal will indeed happen. Especially this mysterious army controlled by the fourth prince is too terrifying. I'm afraid that even if the 8 noble families came out in full force, they wouldn't be able to withstand a few rounds of fire and they would suffer heavy losses. Think about it this way. The hearts of some of the evil spirits began to waver. At this time, Shen Jian held up the ghost trumpet again, pouring the yin qi into it, and King Bian Cheng's divine ability, voice of ghosts and gods, was activated. What are you afraid of? We are all ghosts and evil people. If it were me, I would fight with this fourth prince. The temperament of a true man is to move forward bravely when there is fire and thunder. He would rather die on the battlefield than live alone. Stand up, raise the weapons in your hands, and think about your relatives and friends. If you run away, they will fall into the abyss forever. Shen Jian's voice rang out, and the dark wind howled like the sound of hell, shaking the sky. His words were sincere and impassioned. Those who didn't know better thought he was a passionate man trapped in an isolated city with no reinforcements. He could only choose to fight on the front line to defend his homeland behind him. For a few seconds, the fleeing knights and the rustling army of ghosts felt their blood boiling, and they felt the urge to shed their blood. But the next second, they couldn't stand it any longer. Damn it! God really fought with the fourth prince. Aren't you the one who is hunting us? It's really a lot of trouble to say these words to give us some blood. You have a way with how to insult people. The ghosts gnashed their teeth, and their back molars were almost broken. This feeling of being despised by the enemy and feeling inferior is simply crazy. This made them even more angry towards the fourth prince. For a while, the fleeing army of ghosts showed ferocious faces. The anger cannot be suppressed. Then, next moment, they gave up their escape. Incited by the influence of Shen Jian's ghostly voice, he stopped, turned around, with red eyes, facing the bullet, and rushed back with overwhelming hatred. See this. The smile on Shen Jian's face became even stronger. Thumbs up. Thumbs up for these people. Then, he gave these warriors the most explosive way to exit. More than 500 ghost gunmen, armed with loaded flintlock guns, fired a volley, spraying sparks at these ghosts. In an instant, blood-red flowers bloom. A bloody feast unfolded quietly. Further away, Marquis Lanja has not been able to come back to his senses until now. His eyes widened, staring in the direction of the battlefield with an almost red gaze. What happened? What on earth is it? Why was the 4,000 fierce ghost army assembled by the 8 southern nobles defeated by the 500 militiamen of the fourth prince like chopping melons and vegetables? They were just a group of low-level devil civilians who didn't even reach the level of the Ghost King. Not to mention an army of 4,000 ghosts charging together. Even if only 8 top ghost kings attack together, it is enough to kill an entire border town in a few minutes. But the reality is, the 8 top ghost kings could not withstand a round of supernatural attacks. The army of 4,000 ghosts also collapsed under the offensive and became a mess. The key to all this lies in the supernatural weapons in the hands of the militiamen in the border towns. He saw with his own eyes that a white-clad fierce ghost in the border town was holding a weapon, and the bullets fired could penetrate the body of the top ghost king, leaving dismemberment and penetrating wounds. This is incredible. Just like dreaming. If a white-clothed evil spirit armed with a supernatural weapon can injure the top ghost king, then what role does the terror level used to evaluate the strength of evil spirits have? Think of this. Marquis Lanja felt a palpitation in his heart. Because he couldn't be sure whether this supernatural weapon would be equally effective against a ghost like him. No matter how powerful the ghost-level ghosts are, they can't fight head-on with an army of 4,000 ghosts in a head-on charge. In other words, he might also die here. Marquis Lange trembled all over, knowing that this campaign to conquer the fourth prince has completely failed. Unknowingly, the dandy fourth prince, who was notorious in the eyes of other people in the kingdom as uneducated and unskilled, had secretly acquired the capital to unify the southern territory. More importantly, no one knows about this. Except for him, no one would have thought that the fourth prince had abilities that were no less than those of other princes and princesses. His forbearance alone was terrifying. No, I have to go back quickly and tell the Duke about this. Marquis Lange gritted his teeth. His eyes fell on the battlefield again, and he felt his heart bleeding. Because this group of people includes not only the forces of the other 7 nobles, but also his. Even though he is the Marquis of the Southern Territory and a ghost god, the loss of a top ghost king, 10 abyss-level ghost kings, 100 ghost kings, plus a number of red-level ghosts at once is enough to lower the overall strength of the Marquis mansion by 1 level. Fortunately, it's not too late. As long as he returns to the Duke's mansion and explains what happened today, Duke Elk will personally go out and combine all the power of the 8 nobles to destroy the 4th prince's border town. By then, this supernatural weapon, which is enough to rewrite the Eli Empire, will fall into their hands. With this, they can bring the entire southern territory into their own fiefdom, and all the current losses can be made up for. However, at this time, Marquis Lange suddenly felt that someone was staring at him. He took a closer look. The owner of that gaze was none other than the 4th prince. He saw. The 4th prince held up the ghost trumpet and shouted in the direction where he was, "Who is that? Everyone has a responsibility to defend their homeland. They are all good men. How can they surrender to others without fighting?" Marquis Lange. He froze. A trace of disdain immediately appeared. He. The 4th prince was really powerful with his mouth. He could talk the dead into living things. With just one word, he could send the fleeing ghost army back to die. But this doesn't work for him. Because he always firmly believed that this was not considered a failure. When he returned to the Duke's palace and regrouped, the 4th prince would not be able to bounce back for long. In this case, it is naturally impossible for him to be incited. Then, he glanced at the 4th prince coldly, and cold, angry and suppressed words were squeezed out of his throat. "His Royal Highness the 4th prince, what you did today is an enemy of the Duke and all the nobles in the entire southern territory. As an enemy, no matter how you got this supernatural weapon, quantity will always be your irreparable disadvantage. Next time, you won't be so lucky." The words fell. Marquis Lange didn't even look at the other people on the battlefield, turned around and planned to leave. The other side. Shen Jian raised his eyebrows and said with disgust, "You are greedy for life and afraid of death, you are a coward." Marquis Lange paused, then regained his composure, but his tone became colder. "Haha, Your Highness, your supernatural weapons are indeed powerful, but they are still a little too tender for me as a ghost. Try then." Marquis Lange did not speak, and said harsh words, "When I go back to assemble the southern army, I hope your highness will still be tough. Also, your highness, you can't keep me, so don't let go of your harsh words." Finished. He turned and left. The figure is floating in the air. The ghost realm overlapped, driving his body away as if flying. This time, he didn't look back. Very tough. It was as if he had not failed at all, and this loss was painless and painless. The ghost scribe Kalitair, the ghost mayor, and even the surviving players were all shocked. Especially the former, clenching his fists and then clenching them again. Just as Marquis Lange said, the border town has the ability to defeat an army of 4,000 ghosts, but that does not mean it has the ability to leave a single ghost behind. In front of ghosts and gods, the speed of bullets is not very fast and can be easily avoided. Wanting to keep the other person is as difficult as going to heaven. Once Marquis Lanja is allowed to leave, within a few days, the border town will face a counter-attack from all the nobles in the southern border and the siege of the three ghosts and gods. Until then, everything will lead to the unknown. Subconsciously, Kali Tir glanced at Shen Jian. She wanted to know how Shen Jian could keep Marquis Lanja in this situation. That's what I thought. She saw Shen Jian take out the barrel of a gun with a larger caliber, and when he took it out again, a Yin-Chi cannonball that was countless times larger than an ordinary bullet was stuffed into the barrel. Then the button was pressed, and a cannonball was shot out. It hit the Marquis Lanja flying in mid-air. Boom! Ah! Accompanied by two explosion-like sounds. The body of Marquis Lanja fell from mid-air. Black smoke emanates from the body. He looked as if he could never die again. Shen Jian said disdainfully, "I'm just pretending." Ghost clerk. Ghost mayor. A group of players. If they read it correctly, this horse riding seems to be an RPG. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyu Buletin Chigwa. Chapter 820. At this time, the player's worldview has completely collapsed. If the previous loaded flintlock guns could be explained as the inevitable result of medieval history, then the current RPG really cannot be explained. They must have become fierce. Even if you have a flintlock gun, you even pulled out a humming rocket launcher. How is this so damn possible? Even players who are familiar with history know that rocket launchers, an obviously modern thermal weapon, will only appear in an era of significant industrialization. In human history, rocket launchers first appeared during World War II. And where is this place? A copy of the horror game, a deep ghost realm, an independent kingdom with a medieval background. Things like rocket launchers cannot be built at the current point of time. Not to mention, how do the ghosts here know about rocket launchers? This is as outrageous as someone suddenly taking out a book of advanced mathematics during a primary school course. What's going on with this fourth prince riding a horse? Confused. All players are confused. At this time, on the chat interface, Adolf at Eddie, how's the situation? Calculating time. The fourth prince's territory should have been leveled if circumstances permit. We should show our faces in front of the marquee. If we can get a recommendation from a ghost, we can basically lock in the victory of this copy. Looking at the panel, the mixed race player with the ID of Eddie looked at the Marquis of Wolf Fang, who had fallen to the ground with a stiff face, covered in black smoke, and looked like he was being tortured. His throat began to secrete saliva unconsciously. Eddie, Marquis Lanja failed. The 4,000 ghost army was completely annihilated. Adolf, huh? Sam, WTF? William, is today April Fool's Day? Seeing this news, all the players in the East, West, North, and High Seas were stunned. What's the situation? Could something happen to the army of ghosts led by a ghost god? Even if it was an accident, Marquis Lanja, as a ghost and god, would be able to escape. But now the news is that the entire army has been destroyed. Eddie, it's the fourth prince. He won. He made a flintlock that was enough to kill the top ghost king. He armed 500 ghost gunmen and crushed the enemy throughout the process without leaving a single one behind. Adolf. Sam. William. Did they read it wrong, or did the other party write it wrong? Flintlock gun? Kill the top ghost king? None of these things are strange when taken alone, but when they are combined, it is not strange, but evil. Why, the deep ghost realm has begun to develop technology. Adolf, where is the Marquis of Wolffang? He is a ghost and god, can't even he resist it? Eddie, it was indeed not blocked, he was sent away by the fourth prince with a rocket launcher. At this time, all the players fell silent. He looked at the chat interface with a very different look. The flintlock gun kills the top ghost king, and the rocket launcher sends away the ghosts and gods. Are you sure this isn't a joke? If ghosts could be dealt with so easily, how could the real world be a scene of strange resurgences and rampant ghosts? Ken. One person is lying, but what about 3, 5, or 7? After the 7 players in the southern border jointly verified it, the other players had to believe that the fourth prince won the battle. Using an almost dimensionality reducing method, he easily defeated the 4,000 ghost army, which also included 8 top ghost kings, as well as the leader, Marquis Lanja, who possessed the power of ghosts and gods. One battle shocked the world. This result was unexpected by everyone. The fourth prince, who had a bad reputation in the royal city, had a bad personality, was a playboy, was incompetent, absurd, and uneducated, but he actually defeated the conquest army sent by the 8 nobles in the south, and even killed a marquis. This is not only causing a sensation, this is clearly breaking the news. The players were in collective uproar. How did the fourth prince possess this power? Forget about the flintlock gun, but the rocket launcher is definitely not something that can be manufactured in this era. Certainly. This is not the key. The key now is, how does this thing kill the top ghost king, or even a ghost god? Why are modern thermal weapons that are more powerful than this in the real world unable to have such a fatal effect on ghosts above the ghost king level? In such confusion. Southern border town. Shen Jian threw away the rocket launcher in a leisurely manner, his eyes full of disgust, thinking that he was so special and that he only dared to fall in love. Fortunately, he also specially produced a bullet with considerable weight, which was a waste of time. Thinking. Shen Jian waved his hand. The 500 ghost gunmen behind him had already swarmed up, sweeping away the scattered noble knights. The moment the 8 top ghost kings and Marquis Lanja died, the failure of this conquest army was already doomed. Especially when Marquis Lanja died, the morale was completely shattered. There was no intention of resisting at all. That's all. This battle against the fourth prince, in which the fourth prince won a complete victory, quickly spread throughout the southern territory. Ghost scribe Kali Tir blinked his blue eyes, and there was an invisible ripple in his eyes. Your Highness, he really did it? Under the huge disparity in the overall lineup, the flintlock was used to rewrite the ending, achieving a miracle of defeating more with less and with 0 casualties. Even His Highness himself killed a ghost. Such a dazzling achievement can only be compared to that of the 3 princesses who dominated the high seas. After this battle, His Highness will truly show his prominence and step onto the stage to compete for the position of Crown Prince and become the master of the Eli Empire. Think about it this way. She suddenly realized in hindsight that His Highness the Fourth Prince would become even more dazzling in the future, especially when he unified the Southern Territory, unified the 4 realms, and became the Crown Prince. It would definitely be the dream of 90 million girls in the Eli Empire. By then, the people surrounding the Fourth Prince will all be the true pride of heaven. As secretary and adjutant, where should she go? Kali Tir's little face wrinkled slightly, thinking of the countess brought back by Shen Jian, and the absurd behavior the two had performed during the day, and she suddenly felt an uncomfortable feeling in her heart. I always feel like I've been robbed of something. It made her feel a little melancholy for a moment. When he looked at Shen Jian again, there seemed to be a different color in his eyes. It was the ghost mayor, with only excitement in his eyes. He carefully put away the rocket launcher that Shen Jian had thrown away, and wiped it away with some distress. This was a supernatural weapon that could kill ghosts and gods. How could His Highness the Fourth Prince throw it away? What if it is picked up by an enemy? Do it all. He also joined the sweep team. Soon. Ghost Scribe Kali Tirjianhui reported, Your Highness, the enemy's casualties have been calculated. All ghosts above the abyss level have died, and less than 50 of them below the Ghost King level have become prisoners of war. But, at this point, she paused, faced Shen Jian's doubtful eyes, and continued to explain, but among this group of people, several prisoners of war asked to meet you, saying that they have supernatural weapons here that are more powerful than rocket launchers. Shen Jian was slightly startled. Then he reacted. Those Western players are not dead. Very lucky. In such a chaotic situation, he could survive to the end and become a prisoner of war. He was worthy of being a player who had experienced various dangerous dungeons. Thinking. Shen Jian said with great interest, Take me to see it. Not long after, Shen Jian came to a dungeon in a border town. I met Eddie, who had come here as a messenger to deliver a message. At this time, one of his arms was missing and he was lying in pain in the dungeon. When he heard the movement outside, he subconsciously stood up. Your Highness, please remember me. I can work for you and help you create more powerful supernatural weapons. Eddie spoke hurriedly. Your Highness, although the rocket launcher is powerful, I have seen even more powerful weapons. Some of those weapons can fly in the sky, some can swim in the water, and some can have an explosion range of dozens of kilometers. And I know all of them. Craftsmanship. Speaking of which, Eddie's eyes burst with confidence. Because before the advent of horror games, he was the head of a high-tech laboratory specializing in the development of weapons. Among all players, he is the most professional when it comes to making weapons with his bare hands. Theoretical knowledge is even more impressive. Shen Jian raised his eyebrows. Really? Of course, Your Highness, let me join you, you will never regret it. Eddie seemed to have grasped the last straw and looked at Shen Jian expectantly. The survival instinct in his eyes has reached its peak. However, at this time, Shen Jian suddenly laughed. The corners of his mouth widened. I saw that you have all spontaneously joined forces to deal with me. Oh, yes, it seems that I haven't revealed my identity yet. The words fell. Above Shen Jian's head, a line of identity information belonging to the player suddenly appeared above his head. Player, King Yama. Level 64. That moment, Eddie's pupils widened, as if he had seen a ghost. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the King of Hell of the 10th Palace. Author, Shiyu Buletin Chigua. Chapter 821. Player, King Yama. Level 64. The moment this exclusive identification panel for horror game players appeared, Eddie was stunned, and the other surviving players in the dungeon were also stunned. Pupils shook violently. His eyes were full of horror. They looked at Shen Jian with stiff expressions. Looking at the fourth prince of the kingdom, who had an extraordinary bearing and a wise and mighty attitude, a turmoil arose in their minds. The fourth prince is a human player. Or the so-called Dragon Kingdom man. How is this possible? According to the information summarized by the Holy See organization, in the role-playing flow mode of the thriller game, most of the initial identities that players can have are random, but this randomness also has levels. The initial identities of 4-star players and 5-star players are different, and the permissions they have for a game with a C-level rating and an S-level rating are also different. Among their group of players, the one with the highest initial status is undoubtedly Adolf. When he first entered the dungeon, he had the status of the son of the steward of the Viscount mansion. Compared with other people who start as refugees, beggars, and workers, the advantages brought by being the son of the housekeeper of the Viscount mansion are undoubtedly far ahead. While other players are still in a state of uncertainty, others can already use their identity advantages to seek benefits for themselves. If it is a lineup confrontation mode, This advantage can even allow players to get rid of all enemies in the early stage. One can imagine how great the impact of having a higher level identity in the dungeon will be. But the prince of a king, with such a noble status, why can players choose? It is simply outrageous to open the door for outrageousness. It is so outrageous. If you have this kind of status, then what else are we doing? Why don't you just put on your wings and fly? For a while, the few surviving players were stunned. There was even more despair inside. They now finally understand why Thriller Games said someone was destroying the balance of the game and had to go out of their way to compensate them. If they were to make an enemy of a prince, without this boosting buff, they would definitely lose. No. Now it seems that even if they have the power to become stronger through the horror game compensation, it will be difficult for them to defeat Shen Jian at the beginning. The Thriller game gives this hard work will be rewarded permission, which requires them to be late-stage heroes, first hide their identity information, hide in the dark, increase their strength, and then find opportunities to counterattack. But they were directly exposed to each other. He even openly discussed how to deal with the fourth prince in the chat interface in front of the other party. The thought of this. Several players' faces turned green. I feel like a clown, performing monkey tricks in front of the enemy's eyes, and I think my performance is flawless. This is so devastating. The mixed-race player with the ID of Eddie trembled his lips, and then screamed, You are the fourth prince? This is impossible, even if you are really the city lord of the game area in the horror world, but the deep-seated ghost the domain is stronger than the thriller world. How can you get the initial identity of the prince? See this. Shen Jian's eyes were playful. He tilted his head and said, Maybe, it's because I'm handsome. Eddie. God, you are so handsome. You can be handsome enough to be eaten. He finally understood. From the beginning, this dragon countryman was treating them like monkeys. The only thing they can do now is to spread this shocking news and let other players understand the fact that the fourth prince is a Dragon Kingdom player. Only in this way can they hope to defeat the opponent. However, at this time, Shen Jian's words made his heart tremble. Do you want to reveal my identity? Eddie raised his head sharply and looked at Shen Jian with a gloomy expression. So what? As he spoke, he quietly opened the chat interface, edited a piece of text, and then sent it. The next second, with a ding sound, a line of prompts appeared in front of him. The presence of the Thriller game manager has been detected and the rules have been modified. Player Eddie has been banned by the system. Eddie. He was confused. Damn it. Banned. This horse riding is really a knife on the butt, which is an eye-opener. Subconsciously, he looked at Shen Jian and said in a scary tone, What you did? Do you have the authority to influence the operation of the Thriller game? Shen Jian said casually, Just try it, it seems to be successful. Finished. Shen Jian also lost interest in these white players. His biggest purpose in coming here is to try out the Thriller game manager authority. Back when he was in the third location, Luo Fengtian, which was the dungeon of Entertainment City, Thriller game briefly blocked the chat interface function, so that he could not receive the news of world-weary ghosts and gods attacking the real world immediately. Now, he is also the Thriller game manager and one of the final heirs. He can ban players easily. If necessary, he can also completely block the chat interface function. Looking at it this way, he can basically cover the Thriller game rights owned by Luo Fengtian Buddha Kingdom in the fourth place. The next step is to see who can get more than half of the Thriller game rights first and become the leader. With this thought, Shen Jian left without looking back. Out of the dungeon. The ghost scribe Kali Tyre was already waiting outside. Shen Jian gestured, border towns don't need prisoners. These people should be treated as killed in action. I will have the death pensions calculated and sent back to Duke Elk. The ghost's secretary was startled. The corner of his mouth twitched. She could already imagine Duke Elk's look when he saw the letter after tallying up the soldiers' death pensions and sending them to the enemy. In terms of his bad character, His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince has not changed at all. Your Highness, the news of the great victory in the border town will spread throughout the Southern Territory in less than 3 days. At that time, we will usher in a counter-attack by the entire Southern Territory nobles, especially the forces headed by the Duke of Elk. They are the focus of attention. Speaking of which, the ghost's secretary paused for a moment, and his tone became hesitant. According to my inference, within 7 days, the Duke of the Southern Territory will definitely raise his army, and the assembled army of ghosts may exceed 40,000. Among them, the ghosts and gods alone will more than 4,000 versus 40,000, this is a tenfold difference. Compared with the 500 militiamen in the border town, the gap is more than 100 times. Not to mention the Duke of Elk, a leader among ghosts and gods, and other ghost-level allies. Even with the miraculous supernatural weapon of the flintlock, the gap in numbers is not so easy to smooth out. Because of this, her idea was not to anger Duke Elk yet, but to treat it as nothing happened and grow steadily until it could arm an army of 10,000 people. However, when these words fell into Shen Jian's ears, their meaning changed. After listening, Shen Jian pondered for a moment. He opened his mouth and said, "In 3 days, we will go straight to the Duke's palace and kill the leaders first, so that we won't be afraid that those behind will continue to raise troops." Kali Till? She was a little stunned. No. Go directly to the Duke's palace? So careless? That's probably not what I just said. What if the people behind continue to raise troops? Haha, then keep killing until no one dares to resist anymore. Shen Jian's eyes flashed with excitement. He likes stubborn ghosts best. The more this happens, the more he wants to trample on the other person and play with him. At the same time, Duke's Palace. The Chinese man with the ID Fang Xiu is looking at the chat interface worriedly. Ever since they learned that the Fourth Prince defeated the expedition team, the 7 players led by Eddie have completely lost contact. 4 of the players are confirmed dead, and the remaining 3 are missing. There is only one possibility for this situation to happen. The 3 surviving players fall into a coma. Only in this way will no news come at all. And even if he is still alive, the end may not be much better. After all, the Conquest team has been defeated. Even if these players are alive, they have already become prisoners of war. If they want to leave, they will definitely die unless the dungeon is resolved. He lamented this situation. Each of these 7 players had higher game levels than him, but he was the one who survived to the end. He was very lucky that he did not join the Conquest team because of the Ghost Chef, otherwise he would be one more person on the list of dead or missing. Just thinking about it? The restaurant door was pushed open with great force. At this time, Duke Elk was dining. When he noticed someone pushing the door open, he frowned subconsciously. A pair of animal-like vertical pupils stared coldly at the guards who broke in here. Before he could attack, the personal guard who broke in had already spoken, "Your Majesty, the expedition team has been wiped out, and His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince has sent a letter of condolences." Duke Elk. His expression froze. The vertical pupils opened. Supernatural fluctuations belonging to the level of ghosts and gods leaked out. "What did you say?" Moment. When Duke Elk finished listening to the report, his face showed a mix of shock and anger. The 4,000-strong ghost army was wiped out, Duke Lanja died, and the militia led by the Fourth Prince had 0 casualties. There are also supernatural weapons that can cause dismemberment and fatal injuries to top ghost kings and even ghosts and gods. Was this done by the Fourth Prince? Is this done by the incompetent Fourth Prince who has a lot of misdeeds and is evaluated as a puddle of mud? What a joke. Duke Elk opened the condolence letter and read it one by one. Next moment, his face twisted into a grimace. "Fourth Prince, you are very good. Do you think that if you win once, you can ride on my head? This southern territory is mine, no one can touch it, and the same goes for the prince." Aside. The Chinese player whose ID is Fang Xiu is crying without tears. He had just glanced at the contents of the condolence letter and had a clear understanding of the fourth prince's bad image. Because the condolence letter said, "If you want to recover the loss, you report it and I will approve the note. The death pension will be distributed by the Duke's palace." Gan. You killed the Duke's men, slapped the Duke in the face, and asked the Duke to write a report for you like a subordinate, and then handed it over to you to finalize the report. You even let someone else's Duke's house pay the money. This is simply a face-hopping output. The bamboo shoots have arrived home. End of chapter. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Buletin Chigua. Chapter 822. Time flies. News that the entire expedition team had been wiped out spread like wildfire throughout the southern border. All the nobles, big and small, seemed to have seen a ghost. They felt that as soon as they woke up, the world would go crazy. The infamous, dandy, and incompetent fourth prince was able to withstand the conquests of the 8 nobles in the south, and it is said that he still won a complete victory with a crushing advantage. This is incredible. Although the army of 4,000 ghosts in this expedition was only part of the force of the 8 noble families and was not an all-out force, even this lineup was enough to sweep through any supernatural land in the south. And what does the fourth prince have? In the nearly 2 years of the king's trial, all I could hear was that the fourth prince had done some ridiculous things that made the royal family lose face. As for the territory, let alone management, I'm afraid he couldn't even understand the finances. How could such a good-for-nothing prince who had become a laughingstock be able to defeat the southern coalition forces? Puzzled. Puzzled. Shocked. Uproar. For a while. The ghosts are noisy. The discussion about the fourth prince is getting more and more intense. There are 2 arguments in total. 1. Whether the fourth prince has been disguising himself. What are you talking about? Disguise. Are you saying that all the fourth prince's actions over the years, including the ridiculous things he did in the royal city, were all done intentionally by him? Some people were puzzled. His eyes were filled with astonishment. That's right. Apart from deliberately pretending, is there any other reason to explain this matter? If the fourth prince is really a fool, how could he defeat the conquest team of the 8 noble families? But why is this? He is a royal prince who has been at the top since birth. Why does he need to pretend to be a playboy and do all kinds of ridiculous things? I think, the fourth prince must have felt threatened. The royal family has no family ties. Even if they are brothers and sisters, once someone threatens their status, the family ties will instantly turn into a sharp sword. The fourth prince may have sensed this. This is how we avoid potential threats. Oh my God, I still remember that the fourth prince was less than 10 years old when this kind of stigma spread. A child under 10 years old not only knew how to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages, but also had such a careful mind, even deliberately not improving your own strength and turning yourself into a real dandy. These words. The shock made all the ghosts lose their spirits. Because once this statement is accepted, it seems reasonable for the fourth prince to defeat the conquest army. They guessed that the fourth prince had been waiting for an opportunity. This opportunity is the king contest trial. Only by participating in the king's trial can he leave the royal city, cultivate himself steadily, manage his own power, and work hard to improve his voice. And now, he did it. During the 2 years of the king's trial, the fourth prince pretended to be a playboy to confuse others, while secretly arming his own army in a border town, secretly infiltrating the army, and finally became a blockbuster. Second, what on earth does the fourth prince want to do? This is the crux of the argument. After all, in the past trials of fighting for the king, the relationship between the princes, princesses, and local nobles has always been very harmonious and complementary to each other. However, the fourth prince went in the opposite direction and openly confronted the largest noble in the south. This was simply seeking death. Even though the fourth prince could defeat the conquest army, once the Duke of the Southern Territory reacted and gathered all the noble forces under his command to come out in full force, the border town would be flattened in no time based on its size. The fourth prince is looking for death. His intention is already obvious. The sword guides the realm and becomes the final winner of the king's trial with a crushing advantage. It's too urgent. He obviously still has more than 3 years, but he chose the most unsafe way. Hey, time waits for no one. The fourth prince has been lagging behind for nearly 2 years. Even if he starts to govern the territory now, his progress is completely behind the other princes and princesses. His only chance to overtake is to control the entire southern territory, becoming the undisputed number one as the leader of the southern territory. The ghosts discussed. It's all a pity. If the fourth prince had not wasted the first 2 years, he would have had a chance to compete with other royal heirs based on his abilities. Unfortunately, he was assigned to the poorest territory. This opening itself is already on the verge of elimination. Nowadays, if you want to overtake, you can only take the wrong approach. However, this is a road of no return. With the size of a 3-star supernatural place, no matter who comes to fight against the counterattack of the entire southern noble force, I am afraid they will feel powerless. In their opinion, if the fourth prince can choose a large and rich supernatural land as his territory, the position of the crown prince may not be the fourth prince's. It is a pity, when his own ghost life is threatened, the fourth prince you can choose to save your life first, and then pretend to be a dandy. Apparently, this is an unsolvable choice. While there are heated discussions in the southern border, there are also new trends in the western border next door. The white 5-star player with the ID Adolf walked into the small warehouse where the players gathered and said straight to the point, the victory of the fourth prince was something that none of us expected. Now, we have 2 options. First, take advantage of the fourth prince's victory. The prince is not successful, so joining his team will be much easier than joining other princes and princesses. Second, make thermal weapons and use them to get into the sight of other princes and princesses. This sentence was also sent to the chat interface simultaneously by Adolf. The place suddenly fell into silence. At this time, a black player asked, "Are thermal weapons useful? Haven't they been tested and modern thermal weapons can't affect ghost kings and above?" Adolf said solemnly, "No, it is effective. Otherwise, how could flintlocks and rocket launchers kill the top ghost kings and ghosts and gods? I suspect that the reason why modern thermal weapons are ineffective against ghost kings and above is because they use materials from the human world. I think, if we could create thermal weapons in a horror world, the effect would be far different. The more advanced the supernatural materials used, the greater the lethality. If the materials used to create Ghost King level ghost weapons can be used to build firearms, their power will be strong enough to kill the Ghost King." Hear this. All the players in the audience were shocked. If this speculation is true, then the human world will usher in a new change. The status of Ghost Masters will be the same as that of the martial arts masters of the Dragon Kingdom. They will withdraw from the stage of history, allowing the real world to officially return to an era dominated by technology. Only this time, it's supernatural technology. I choose the second option. Not long after, someone makes a decision. I would also choose the second option. It seems that everyone has the same idea. Oh, man, we're not idiots. Why choose one when you can choose 2? All the players started joking. The sudden rise of the fourth prince really exceeded everyone's expectations. But this is not enough for players to travel across mountains and rivers to seek refuge. Not to mention, the fourth prince is also unable to protect himself now. The power of the Southern Duke is no joke. Even if they have to gamble, they will not choose this option with extremely high mortality rate. On the contrary, it is the second type that makes them a rare commodity. Once they truly create a hot weapon that can kill the Ghost King, then it will not be that they have tried their best to join the lineup of a certain prince and princess, but the other party in turn invites them to join. All fools know how to choose. Soon. Voting is over. All players chose the second option. Adolf said, "In that case, we have to think about how to make the same flintlock gun in this backward medieval kingdom. Anyone who knows how to make firearms can come to the west and I can persuade the Viscount's house to provide it supernatural materials." Southern Border Duke's Mansion. After a few days, Duke Elk once again summoned the 8 largest nobles under his command. Count Ano was among them. But at this time, his expression was very ugly, and his grimace was full of gloom. And with the same expression, there is also the leader, Duke Elk. The first person responsible for the complete annihilation of the expedition team was undoubtedly Earl Ano, and the second person responsible was the initiator, the Duke of Elk. At this time, the two people's inner thoughts were surprisingly the same: the fourth prince must pay a heavy price. As everyone knows. At this moment, Shenjian, who was far away in a border town, was also moved. End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyubuletin Chigwa. Chapter 823. Duke's Palace. The 8 largest nobles in the south gathered together. The people with the lowest title here are all earls, and the ones with the lowest level of terror have reached the top Ghost King level. They are all beings who have made significant contributions to the Eli Empire. Looking at the entire southern territory, they are the makers of the rules. However, today, at the round table meeting, the expressions of the 8 people were surprisingly consistent, with faces that were either shocked, angry, gloomy, or ferocious. The leader, the Duke of Elk, opened his pair of vertical pupils and glanced past with his deathly white pupils. A terrifying supernatural threat that was infinitely close to a world-destroying ghost and god escaped, and gusts of sinister wind blew, causing the surrounding temperature to drop. Quite a few. Tell me what you think about this matter. Duke Elk spoke in a sinister tone. Earl Ano was the first to speak. We underestimated the fourth prince. He disguised himself too thoroughly. Not only us, I am afraid that the entire royal city, including the royal family, was also deceived by the superb acting skills of the fourth prince. To deal with such an existence, we cannot give him time to breathe, we need to defeat him at once. Hear this. The other nobles felt the same way. Whether they admit it or not, the fourth prince is indeed scary. Not to mention anything else, just the character of forbearing for more than 10 years is enough to make people shudder. If they are targeted by such a being, if they cannot be killed at once, they will be the ones who die in the future. At this time, a young earl hesitated and said, "Why do we have to fight against the fourth prince? The king trial itself is an assessment to select the crown prince and determine the successor to the throne. In addition to our southern border, the eastern border, the western border, and the northern border all have their own tests. As the heir to the royal family, now that the fourth prince has suddenly emerged as an army and has such a kind-hearted character, we can definitely turn our hostility into friendship and assist the fourth prince to win the trial for the king. As for the conquest army..." The words have not yet finished. Earl Ano interrupted unceremoniously. "The fourth prince wants to become the master of the southern territory, not to gain our support. Once he gains power, our fiefdom will sooner or later become his vassal. By then, there is no autonomy at all. In this case, apart from empty titles, what else do we have left? Don't you understand this? Speaking of which, Erlano turned his attention to the Duke of Elk again, and said with a distorted expression, "Your Majesty, I propose that while the fourth prince is still immersed in victory, gather the southern army and attack his territory. Only in this way can this threat be completely eradicated. As for the royal family, we can hand over the supernatural weapon developed by the fourth prince. This is a secret weapon that can change the situation in the kingdom. If we hand it over, other princes and princesses will naturally shift their conflicts to them in order to fight for control." Hear the words. There was a dead silence at the meeting. Duke Elk had something in his eyes. The failure of the conquest army was largely due to the supernatural weapons in the hands of the fourth prince. A militia team that did not even have a ghost king could crush an elite division of 4,000 people with supernatural weapons. Who would not use such a strategic weapon? Jealous. If he could intercept the manufacturing process of these weapons, he, the Duke of the Southern Territory, might be able to take a step further and establish his own kingdom. Think of this. He has Xiaojuju in his heart. He glanced around the 7 people in the meeting and followed Erlano's words and concluded, "The Southern Territory belongs to us. Even the royal family has no right to interfere too much. What the fourth prince did is breaking this rule. But after opening this mouth, it seems justifiable that the royal family wants to intervene again. Everyone, it is not just a while that the royal family wants to take back these NFF territories. This time, it is likely to be a temptation from the royal family. I want you to mobilize all the effective forces under your command. In 3 days, troops will be sent to the border town to end this farce." The words fell. No one on the field had an opinion. They are used to being self-reliant and already regard the Southern Territory as one of their own. Now that someone wants to occupy their place, how could they be willing to know? Even the royal family has no right to interfere too much in this regard. The most striking feature is that the laws in the South are made by them, not the royal family. One can imagine. How much autonomy do they have? Just thinking about it. The next second, a shocking loud noise suddenly rang out. The source of the sound seemed to be at the city gate. Duke Elk was stunned. He immediately stood up and shouted, "What happened?" A personal guard rushed in and said with a horrified look on his face, "Your Majesty, the fourth prince has led his troops in and has breached the gate of Eagle City." As soon as these words fell, the whole audience was shocked. Eagle City is the ducal fiefdom. And they are currently in the Duke's mansion in Eagle City. No. How dare the fourth prince? Did he think that after winning once, he would be able to look down upon him and have no rivals? Otherwise, how could he dare to attack the Duke's fiefdom? For a while, the nobles on the field were confused. They all looked at the leader, Duke Elk. At this time, Duke Elk was also a little stunned. This was the first time that he was beaten into the territory after becoming the Duke of the Southern Territory, and this person was still a prince. What does the fourth prince want to do? Did he really think that with his status as a prince, he couldn't touch him? A thought came to mind. The grimace of Marquis Elk turned completely dark. The ghost realm unfolds. Disappeared into the Duke's palace. The other side. The gate of Eagle City. Fighting raged, buildings collapsed, and screams broke out. 500 ghost gunmen armed with flintlock guns advanced at the speed of 3 steps and a volley of bullets. Even the magnificent city walls could not withstand the overwhelming flames. All ghost soldiers who tried to stop him along the way, whether they were ghost kings, abyss-level ghost kings, or top ghost kings, were killed by bullets and fell in a pool of blood. Soon, the gate of Eagle City fell. Shen Jian stepped into the city. I saw all kinds of ghosts with frightened expressions. Think about it. He took out the ghost trumpet and consoled him, "Don't be afraid, everyone. In war, it is normal for some aftermath to affect innocent people, and it is reasonable to cause some small casualties. I suggest you stand still and wait for death's choice. No matter the outcome is good or bad, this is the choice of fate, isn't it? Let us trust in the Lord, Amen." Shen Jian said as he spoke. The ghost gunman opened the way, continuously mopping up the city defense troops and Duke's palace soldiers who gathered from all directions. Hear this. All the ghosts were shocked. It's normal for God to have some minor casualties. Listen, is this human talk? You bitch, have you always been so shameless, or is it just today? The ghosts were furious. As citizens of the Duke's fiefdom, they had personally experienced the sarcasm of the victors, but it was still infuriating for people like Shen Jian to laugh and joke when their lives were at stake, and not take their lives seriously at all. Is he really a royal prince? Didn't this fourth prince attack Eagle City just to occupy the southern border? And isn't the most important thing about unifying the southern border the support of the people in their territory? The way to be king is to follow what the people want, but what is this fourth prince doing? What he did was not caring about their lives at all. Could it be that he wants to be a tyrant? All the ghost people were confused. See this. Shen Jian didn't know what he was thinking of. He thought about it and said unexpectedly, "You guys here don't believe in the Lord. If that doesn't work, how about believing in God? Amitabha. If that doesn't work, believe in the light." Group of ghosts. Grass. You're so humming stupid that you can't spit out ivory. You are a professional when it comes to messing with people's mentality. Both the citizens of Eagle City and the guards who went forward to resist the advance of the ghost gunmen all had their faces flushed. The most insulting thing is often not the physical attack, but the mental attack. And like Shen Jian, it is no longer a simple mental attack, but mental pollution. It made them want to tear the fourth prince alive in front of them. So infuriating. See this. Shen Jian didn't care. The corners of his mouth curled up. Popular support? Can it be eaten? When he was in the Kingguo dungeon, he gained a wave of public support because he needed to collect dragon energy. But in the Eli Empire, his main mission is to conquer the city, destroy existing plot points to maximize profits, eliminate other princes and princesses as quickly as possible, and get half of Luo Fengtian from the royal family. Permissions. In this case, public support is of no use to him. Of course he can do whatever he wants. In fact, if it weren't for the side mission restrictions that required him to use his identity as a lord to attack the city, he would have descended on Eagle City a few days ago, wiped out the Duke of Elk and other nobles, and unified the southern border. The current speed is still too slow. After all, in addition to the southern border, there are also the eastern border, the western border, the northern border, the high seas, and the most important royal city. If he wasted 10 days and a half on each super large supernatural place, it would take him several months to clear a dungeon. During this time, he could do nothing. If the Buddha kingdom takes the opportunity to do something small, he won't be able to care about it. This is not what Shen Jian wants to see. Because of this, he would directly attack Eagle City. Thinking. A dark wind blows. Shen Jian looked around. High in the sky, 8 ghost figures were seen standing out of thin air. The terror level of each ghost is not lower than that of the top ghost king, especially the leading ghost with pale vertical pupils, whose own terror level is infinitely close to that of a world-destroying ghost. He superimposed the ghost realm, placing himself in a high position, overlooking the chaotic scene below. Subsequently, his pale pupils immediately fell on Shen Jian. It was Duke Alk. He stared at Shen Jian and was about to speak, but Shen Jian had already taken the lead and said, "Hey, isn't this Xiaoai? Count Ano?" The corners of his mouth twitched fiercely. God damn Xiaoai. I don't know, I thought we had such a good relationship. Xiaoai, we are really destined. The ghost craftsman you gave me last time was so useful. When will it develop again? Let me know and I will steal it from you next time. Shen Jian is very enthusiastic. A win-win business attitude. Count Ano. He stared at Shen Jian so hard that his back molars were almost broken. Damn you, you really don't want to pick up the pot. That's enough, fourth prince, do you think you can bluff like this? I have seen your weakness, and you will regret everything you did today. Duke Elk twisted his face and said with a sinister smile. Shen Jian? His weakness. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Yu Buletin Chi Gua. Chapter 824. This time, Shen Jian was really stunned. His weakness? To be honest, he didn't even know. The other side. Seeing Shen Jian's expression, Duke Elk stood in the air and said with a ferocious smile, Fourth Prince, stop pretending. Your only reliance is this group of militiamen armed with supernatural weapons. But after my observation just now, I found the greatest flaw, or weakness, of this militia, and that was distance. The range of this kind of supernatural weapon is only 100 meters. You only need to stand in a place where the weapon cannot be fired to carry out supernatural attacks. Your militia is just a bunch of chickens and dogs, not worth mentioning at all. Said. Duke Elk stretched out his hand. A black ghost claw formed by Yin Chi just grabbed onto a ghost gunman, and the flintlock in his hand was also confiscated. See this? Shen Jian's eyes showed a bit of disgust. It turned out to be this weakness that made him look forward to it. But the distance problem is indeed an irreparable weakness of the flintlock gun. Duke Elk noticed this problem just by looking at it. He was really keen. Under normal circumstances, just relying on 500 ghost gunmen, even if they could break through the gate of Eagle City, they would not be able to reach the Duke's mansion. After all, Duke Elk was not a vegetarian. An existence that is infinitely close to a world-destroying ghost and god, unless it attacks the opponent head-on with bullets and is shot at for more than 3 rounds, it will be difficult to kill the opponent. And it's not just the Duke of Elk, even the most ordinary ghost and god, it's not something that the militia can solve. But, and there he is. The side mission only requires him to conquer the city as a lord, but there is no restriction on him not being able to take action. He is a dignified lord and has some superhuman strength, which makes sense. Thinking. Duke Elk spoke again, the knights of the Duke's palace should keep their distance and launch a supernatural attack from 200 meters away to kill all these intruders. The words fell. A group of ghost knights who originally blocked the front of the ghost gunmen used ghost domains one after another. While retreating, a large number of supernatural fluctuations swept the entire place. Pick up the heart for me. It hurts so much. Who can bear this pain for me? Have you seen my head? Hungry, I'm so hungry. The terrifying ghost sounds and the strange figures completely demonstrated their horror at this moment. The pale faces were full of resentment, anger, pain, and morbidity. The weakest among those who can become Duke's Palace Knights are Abyss-level Ghost Kings. But just now, a group of Ghost Kings above the Abyss level were forced by a group of militiamen below the Ghost King to not dare to approach, and fear arose in their hearts. It's their shame. Too frustrated. At the moment, following the Duke's order, they could finally avenge their shame. Everyone burst out with all their strength. The yin qi that seemed to have materialized dimly illuminated the surroundings, causing the roar of the yin wind. Even ghosts and gods would break out in a cold sweat at this moment and choose to avoid the sharp edge temporarily. At the same time, the faces of the 500 gunmen headed by the ghost town mayor all changed drastically. At this distance, the flintlock gun cannot hit the enemy at all. Without the flintlock gun, they are just a group of low-level ghosts who are not even as good as the Ghost King. Once they are attacked by the supernatural, they are afraid that they will die in an instant. After all, the gap between the top Ghost Kings and the abyss-level Ghost Kings is too big. So big that if it weren't for the flintlock, they wouldn't even have the courage to stand in front of each other. One can imagine how big the gap is. What to do? A group of ghost gunmen turned their attention to the fourth prince. The ghost mayor winked crazily. Place your hopes on Shenjian. Otherwise, if these ghost knights were allowed to launch a supernatural attack, 500 ghosts would not be enough to kill them. This scene. Naturally, it also fell on Duke Elk and a group of nobles. Erlano said cheerfully, "Fourth prince, without this weird supernatural weapon, your militia doesn't look very confident. Do you feel like you're stealing the chicken but losing the rice?" Duke Elk also sneered, "Your Highness, please be careful next time. Don't easily step into other people's territory before you are completely sure. But, fourth prince, you probably won't have a second chance." Shenjian was unmoved. His expression remained calm. Then, he shook his head in slight surprise. "I didn't expect that. You don't even look like a human being, but your mind works very fast. I thought you were an idiot. Duke Elk. You'd better be polite when you step on the horse." "Haha, your Highness, you can only use your words now." While talking, a surging yin qi reaction also appeared on his body. An invisible supernatural wave spread quietly throughout the entire place. Everyone on the field felt as if their hearts were being grabbed. No, it wasn't a feeling, it was really being grabbed. Especially the 500 militiamen who were born in the border town, their faces turned pale. They could clearly feel that their hearts were pinched hard by an invisible hand, as if they would be crushed out of thin air in the next second. This is the supernatural attack of the Southern Duke. Think of this. All the ghosts changed their expressions. The hand holding the gun trembled a little. There is no sign of a supernatural attack, and you are already between life and death. Is this how scary ghosts and gods are? They didn't even have time to react, and their fate was in someone else's hands. This is too scary. No matter how powerful the flintlock gun is, if it can't hit anyone, everything will be over. The ghost town chief didn't dare to breathe. His eyes were filled with despair. Finished. Even His Highness can't do anything about it? That's what I thought. The ghost town mayor suddenly saw that His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince was moving. Wu Zhu's yin qi swirled in the sky, forming the eye of the storm. In this vision, after Shen Tian, a huge throne suddenly appeared. The throne is more than 100 feet high. Standing in the sky. Just looking at it makes people feel fearful, and they dare not look at it. Next moment, Shen Jian walked up to the throne step by step, waved his sleeves, and sat firmly on it. Kneel down. With one sound, the whole world was convinced. When Shen Jian sat on the throne, the voices of ghosts and gods rang out, and a terrifying supernatural threat enveloped the entire place. At that moment, the sky seemed to fall. The invisible coercion made everyone present bend their backs and kneel down unconsciously, as if they were worshipping their monarch. Even Count Ano, Duke Elk, and other top ghost kings and above were affected by this overwhelming pressure. The ghost realm shattered and fell to the ground. What is this? Duke Elk was horrified. What's going on with this horse riding? What exactly is that throne? Why can he crush his ghost realm and suppress him? He is a ghost. He is still the best ghost and god who is infinitely close to the world-destroying level. Even a true world-destroying ghost and god would not be able to suppress him so completely with supernatural coercion alone. Subconsciously, Duke Elk raised his head and looked up at Shen Jian, who was sitting high on the throne, with a grimace on his face, full of disbelief. The other side. Shen Jian sat high on the throne, raised his fingers slightly, and more than half of the ghosts in the entire Eagle City knelt down. He looked at ease. Looking down. The smile in his eyes was even stronger. Shen Jian glanced at the game panel. Player, King Yama. Level 64. Identity, City King. Ability, Throne of Ghosts and Gods, Rebirth in Hell. The Throne of Ghosts and Gods, the Lord of the Eighth Palace of the Underworld, the City King's clerical ability can be increased, ridiculed, suppressed, and intimidated. And what he just used was the suppression and deterrence effect of the Throne of Ghosts and Gods. Any existence whose terror level does not exceed his will automatically suppress half of its strength within the scope of the Throne of Ghosts and Gods, and produce an awe effect that is engraved deep into the soul. The specific performance is, kneeling down and surrendering. There is no doubt that City King is positioned as a support player. Best for use on the current copy. This is also the reason why he still doesn't care after knowing the restrictions of side missions. Under the influence of the Throne of Ghosts and Gods, Ghost Kings can be used as top Ghost Kings. Thinking. Shen Jian raised his eyes. I don't like people standing above me talking. It makes communication more tiring. Duke Elk. Count Ano. Group of ghosts. They looked at the people around them, who all had their heads raised, and then looked at Shen Jian who was sitting on the throne, overlooking them, and they couldn't hold back at all. Damn it! You don't like people standing over you talking, so what are you doing? I bet you just hate it when others do it, and you don't think it's disrespectful. You stupid double standard dog. It's too weird. Your Highness, I still hold the lives of all your subjects in my hands. Let's talk. Cried Duke Elk. Looking at Shen Jian on the throne, his pair of dead white vertical pupils were full of shock and fear. He didn't know where the throne came from on the fourth prince's body, but he knew clearly that once the throne came out, the fourth prince's strength once again exceeded his expectations. He even doubted whether the fourth prince had reached the level of ghosts and gods. If this is the case, then his plan will be completely ruined. After all, if Shen Jian cannot be caught, all that is empty talk. Because of this, he chose to negotiate peace. Even if you share the rule of the Southern Territory with the fourth prince, it is better than being constantly being targeted. Hear the words. Shen Jian shook his head in disgust. Little dear, why are you so cruel? Since you can't let go of this butcher knife, let me help you. The words fell. Shen Jian raised his fingers slightly again. Two bright golden lasers fell from the sky, like sharp sickles, piercing through the shoulders on both sides of Duke Elk. Laugh. Both arms were broken at shoulder level. Do it all. A simple smile appeared on Shen Jian's face. It seemed like he had done a great good deed. You see, it's that simple to put down the butcher's knife. Duke Elk. He froze in place. He stared blankly at his two dismembered arms, opened his mouth, and was speechless for a moment. Damn it! What the hell is this called letting go? When you put down the butcher knife, you really meant it on the surface. And I only use my right hand to launch supernatural attacks. Why are you dismembering my two arms? Buy one get one free, right? Gan. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Buletin Chigua. Chapter 825. The throne of 100 feet high is towering, and a group of ghosts are crouching. This is a scene where the whole city is excited. The one sitting firmly on the throne is Shen Jian, the fourth prince of the Eli Empire royal family. His figure is majestic and majestic. He raised his finger slightly, and half of Eagle City was oppressed by the supreme aura. Fear arose in his heart, and he did not dare to look directly at it. This moment, horror swept through the audience. It shocked all the ghost people and their eyes were in a trance. Among them, the ones who reacted the most were undoubtedly the Duke of Elk and Earl Ano, as well as various representatives of the southern nobles. Their eyes almost popped out of their heads. The grimacing faces were full of disbelief. Damn it! Is this riding horse the fourth prince? With this pomp, momentum, and coercion, no one would doubt that the king was here. The fourth prince is hiding too deeply. When did he possess this ability? The eyes of the representatives of the southern nobles were filled with confusion. There is no doubt that this is definitely ghost-level strength. Among all the princes and princesses, only the third prince and princess are ghosts and gods, and the others, such as the eldest prince, the second prince, and the sixth prince and daughter, are just the top ghost kings. Not to mention anything else, relying on this alone, the fourth prince's possibility of winning the king's trial can be increased by 50% out of thin air. After all, the foundation of the Eli Empire royal family is still strength. Without strength, no matter how good the management of the territory is, he is still not a qualified king. In particular, the origin of the king's trial is the special rules derived by the four largest holy families in the kingdom to ensure the king's qualifications. And the reason why the four holy families can check and balance the royal family and intervene in the birth of the king is based on their strength, isn't it? As a king, if he does not have a comparable level of terror, then his throne is like water without roots and will be lost at any time. At the moment, what the fourth prince has shown is no weaker than other royal heirs, and is even slightly better. For a while, the ghosts have different thoughts. His face was cloudy and uncertain. Because that's really the worst case scenario. If the fourth prince just wants their support, then they are naturally willing. But the problem now is that the fourth prince has adopted a more domineering approach, intending to capture the entire southern territory and become the master of the southern territory. This is an unacceptable fact for any noble with a foundation and a fiefdom. They don't want to lose their autonomous jurisdiction. Duke Elk was the most rebellious. He is the largest representative of the aristocratic power in the southern territory. In this 3-acre area of the southern territory, he is basically the local emperor and has greater say than the royal family. If he were not afraid of the strength of the royal family and the four holy families, he would have no problem establishing a new kingdom on his own. And what Shen Jian did was to dig out his roots. Fourth prince, do you really want to fight me to the death? As long as you withdraw now, I can pretend that none of this has happened, and the Duke's palace will do its best to help you win the king's trial, and the price is, the southern border remains independent. Duke Elk looked at his two dismembered arms with red eyes, tried hard to suppress his anger towards Shen Jian, and stated his conditions. The other side. On the throne, Shen Jian looked strange and said, by capturing this place, I can not only get the entire Eagle City, but also make the entire southern territory listen to my orders. Why do I need a duke's mansion to help me? Xiaolu, fortunately you don't do it business, otherwise all the designated pants will be left. Duke Elk. Veins popped out on his forehead. Xiaolu, where are you? If you need help, just go to the Duke, and if you have nothing to do, go to the little deer. You are too ugly to act like a horse. It's so frustrating. He was the Duke of the Southern Territory, when had he ever been so humble and humble? But, in order not to fight to the death, he endured it. The worst case scenario is that the queen will rush to join the third princess and stab the fourth prince in the back. Then, he said with a stiff face, Your Highness, that happened after you captured Eagle City. With the 500 militia in your hands, the Duke's palace can kill you even if it uses 100 times the number of people. What's more, the southern border the forces are intertwined, and without the Duke's palace interfering with them, your Highness's orders cannot be spread at all. Shen Jian nodded slightly. Just when Duke Elk thought he had convinced Shen Jian, the next second, Shen Jian on the throne said expressionlessly, What you say makes sense, but I don't listen. What I like most is the twisted melon, sweet or not, besides, at least it will quench your thirst. Speaking of which, Shen Jian's lips curled up. On the other hand, Xiaolu, you are too murderous and selfish. You can obviously solve the problem peacefully, but you insist on starting a war again. Blindly giving in will not bring about your awakening. You know, I can get angry too. Blessed by the voice of ghosts and gods, Shen Jian's voice turned into a tidal wave, sweeping out, majestic and loud, shaking the whole city. Duke Alk. What nonsense are you talking about? God just gives in. This is my line. Besides, it was obviously you who started the war. If you hadn't attacked Eagle City, where would the war have come from? You know how to confuse right and wrong. For those who don't know, I am afraid that they will really be taken by Shen Jian's momentum and words, and subconsciously believe these words, thus tilting all the dissatisfaction to him, leaving him with the blame for the war. You are so angry. I haven't even said a damn thing about being angry yet. Think of this. Duke Elk's face darkened. I knew I couldn't let Shen Jian continue talking, otherwise this black thing would really be said to be white. However, just when he was about to retort, Shen Jian moved. Reach out and explore. On the throne that was more than 100 feet high, among the turbulent clouds, a big hand with solid clouds stretched out, like the hand of God reaching out from the world, grabbing towards the direction of Eagle City. And the target is clearly Duke Alk. Duke Alk. Looking at the giant hand holding up the sky, his pupils shrank suddenly, and his soul emerged. Grass. What kind of ghost are you? Why are you so powerful in your supernatural attack? I run now, is it still too late? A look of fear crept onto Duke Elk's face. He subconsciously expanded the ghost realm to avoid the sharp edge. At the same time, inside Eagle City, looking at the huge hand that stirred up the wind and clouds, like a blow from the sky, the ghosts all shuddered. Completely dumbfounded. Especially Count Ano, whose grimace turned green and green. Emma. Playing so big? Turn it up as soon as you come up. You are not taking the usual path. According to his understanding, even if the two of them broke down and really wanted to fight to the death, they would definitely have to test it out first. When it comes to fighting, only by knowing yourself and the enemy can you be victorious in every battle. When two people are both ghosts and gods, and do not know the details, a normal supernatural confrontation should be to test a few moves first to find out the other party's supernatural strength and the characteristics of the supernatural attack. After careful consideration, decide whether to retreat or explode with all your strength to kill the opponent. This is the normal procedure for supernatural confrontation. But the fourth prince was different. He really opened it up. He showed no mercy at all and launched an earth-shattering attack. This move not only stunned them, but also the Elk Duke was shocked, and he subconsciously chose to avoid this supernatural attack. See this. Shen Jian was indifferent. Reach out and explore again. Another giant hand reaching up to the sky stretched out and grabbed the ghost realm of Duke Elk. Count Ano. All the ghost people. Duke Elk. I'm crazy. Don't your ultimate moves have a cooldown time? Or, in fact, this is just your flat A. In such horror, the ghost stared with wide eyes, looking at the owner of Eagle City, the largest noble representative in the southern region, the Duke of the Kingdom, a being who is infinitely close to the world destroying ghosts and gods. Caught by the giant hand. No matter how hard Duke Elk struggled, he couldn't break free. He could only watch as his body was caught in the air and landed in front of Shen Jian, like a prisoner. This moment, Duke Elk panicked. Alarm bells are ringing in my heart. He never thought that his existence, which was infinitely close to the world-destroying ghost and god, would be so vulnerable. That weird throne suppressed his strength too hard. So much so that he couldn't even put up a decent resistance. What on earth is that? Some special type of ghost land? Your Highness, what do you want to do? I am the Duke of Southern Territory, a nobleman conferred by the king himself. Do you still want to kill me? Do you dare? Duke Elk was still trying to struggle. He didn't believe that Shen Jian dared to kill him. To know. No matter how you say it, he is still a duke of the kingdom. Looking at the entire Ili Empire, there are only two people like him who have obtained the title of duke with no more than two hands. In addition to the four holy families, there is also one from each of the four realms. Killing him would cause a chain reaction that a prince, Shen Jian, could not bear. The trial for kingship would also be affected, and even the royal family would personally intervene. Shen Jian looked at Duke Elk steadily. Then, the strange color in his eyes deepened. I have never heard of such a request in my life, but since you said so, I will satisfy you. The words fell. Before Duke Elk could react, he crushed the opponent's ghost body with his giant hand. With a crackling sound, Duke Elk's body collapsed like a puddle of mud, the luster in his eyes dissipated, and the supernatural aura reaction disappeared. Do it all. Shen Jian opened the blood pool hell and threw his body into it. Be prepared to serve as a blood donation bank. The other side. Seeing Duke Elk's body being crushed into pieces and falling into a state of death, Erlano and other representatives of the southern nobles were stunned. His head exploded. I just feel like my mind is buzzing. Died. Did the fourth prince really kill Duke Elk? How dare he? Isn't he afraid that his trial for the king will be affected or even be deprived of his qualifications? Isn't he afraid that his behavior will make all the nobles in the kingdom hostile and ruin his position as crown prince, or even the throne? No matter what they thought, they couldn't figure out the reason why the fourth prince killed the Elk Duke. It can't really be the Duke of Elk's request, so the fourth prince should just comply. This is such a child's play. The kind that no one would believe if you tell me. This moment. The ghosts could not calm down for a long time. Not only because of the death of Duke Elk, but also because of the change of ownership of Eagle City. Once Duke Elk dies, the fourth prince will no longer have any restrictions in the south. He is the uncrowned king of the south. Lord of the South. End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyu Bulletin Chigua. Chapter 826. With the death of Duke Elk, Eagle City's protective power officially collapsed. 500 ghost gunmen led by Shen Jian took over the Duke's city and took control of the Duke's palace. There are no obstacles along the way. This moment. The people from the border town regard Shen Jian as a god. They are just local ghosts in a 3-star supernatural place, and their own level of terror cannot even reach the level of the Ghost King. Even if they are placed in a border town, they are just a group of ordinary ghosts, let alone putting the stage on a big place like Eagle City. That was the fiefdom of a duke. It is a 5-star supernatural place where ghost kings are worse than dogs and abyss-level ghost kings are everywhere. Only the top ghost kings can stand out here. However, it is such a 5-star supernatural place, but now it has been conquered by His Highness the Fourth Prince. They, a group of low-level ghosts who cannot even reach the Ghost King, now set foot in the city as the master. The ghosts above the Ghost King level that they could not afford to offend in the past have now become prisoners and have lost their former glory. This kind of taste is so refreshing. The other side. Shen Jian released the suppressive effect of the throne of ghosts and gods and landed on the ground again. Looking at the representatives of the southern nobles who were kneeling on the ground and trembling slightly, a strange smile appeared on his face, and then his eyes fell on Erlano. Hey, you didn't commit suicide. Why, are you waiting for me to help, you? Count Ano. Hear this. His body shook harder, and his heart felt cold. Killing an earl is a big crime, but the fourth prince is a humming duke, so if he is an earl, it is nothing. Because of this, he didn't even dare to say harsh words to Shen Jian. He was afraid that the other party would really listen to his opinion and make him a request like I have never seen such a request in my life. Then Count Ano forced his face up and said with a strong expression, "Your Highness, why are you so young? You should call me Xiaoai, this is a good name. No, no matter what, you are also an earl who was awarded a title by the royal family. It is too disrespectful to say this." Shen Jian waved his hand. Acted very modestly. Count Ano. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Not a good die. Wasn't it the name Xiaoai that was first mentioned by this bitch like you? As long as you have some pressure, you won't shout like that on the spot. He vomited secretly. But on the surface, he still smiled and said, "There is nothing wrong. Your Highness, you call me like this, and I feel very friendly. This means that Your Highness, you regard me as one of your own." Hear the words. Shen Jian raised his eyebrows slightly. Seemingly satisfied, he patted Earl Ano on the shoulder and said sincerely, "Yes, you impressed me, but, Xiaoai, you have to work hard, or I will go and steal your territory next time. If there is nothing, then I am going to do a loss-making business, which is not okay." Count Ano. He looked at Shen Jian, looking confused as if he could say this to his face. "You're so damn rude. I don't know, I thought you were really aggrieved. Every time you do business, you make a loss. But in fact, what you do is not just a robber business. You only make profits and no losses. When the robbers hear what you say, they will kneel down and learn from your master. You really don't want this thing about face. Think of this." Earl Ano said aggrievedly, This, thank you for your teaching, Your Highness. No way. He is the weaker side now, and whatever Shen Jian says is whatever he says. And after the Eagle City was conquered, no noble in the entire southern territory could compete with the fourth prince. He was the nominal lord of the southern territory, and he was the earl of the southern territory, and the fiefdom was here. To a certain extent, he was directly controlled by Shen Jian. Jurisdictional. If you don't give up now, when will you give up? Although he has lost his dignity, Haole can survive. This is already the best result. Shen Jian continued, "Don't just talk but don't practice, I will send someone to supervise. Of course, I also know that it is difficult to develop quickly at the moment, but I can give you an idea. Besides you, there are barons, viscounts, big and small, and supernatural lords who own large supernatural lands in the southern region. If you lack the resources for development, then go grab them and incorporate them into your fiefdom, and develop like this. It's quick, and I can have fun grabbing it. If I were you, I would just do this, give it a try, and glory and wealth will be right in front of you. Not just Xiaoai, but the rest of you too. Humans, if you don't push yourself, you will never know that ghost life can be so wonderful. Even if you die, your spirit can still shine and inspire future generations." Shen Jian squinted his eyes and glanced around the representatives of the 7 largest nobles in the southern region, with a look like I am doing this for your own good. Representatives of the 7 nobles. They were stunned. Emma. For most of their lives, this was the first time they saw robbers instilling evil ideas in front of them and encouraging them to rob others. What's more important is that they rob others not to make up for their own losses, but to have the fourth prince rob them again after they finish robbing them. They made a profit just so that the fourth prince could have more fun. Grass. What is the difference between this kind of robbery and paid work? They didn't get any better, and they got a bad name for no reason. The fourth prince didn't have to do anything behind the scenes to take away the resources they had worked so hard for. No one in Pixio has made such a fortune as you. If they do this, their reputation will be ruined. Can they say no? All the representatives of the nobles wanted to cry without tears. Unless they are willing to give up everything they have, the fiefdom they have worked so hard to manage, and all their connections and resources, and just run away alone, they will be trapped. There is no other way but to board the fourth prince's pirate ship. Then, the Marquis, the largest aristocrat in the Southern Territory, was the first to agree. Thank you, His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince, for your guidance. For His Highness's goal of unifying the Southern Territory, I am willing to be a sharp knife. The other nobles listened with bitter expressions on their faces, but they also said sincerely, we are willing to. See this. The smile on Shen Jian's face became even stronger. He waved his hands enthusiastically. When it comes to robbery, business, the best result is that both parties are satisfied. You have trained your troops, expanded your territory, and strengthened your strength, and I have gained resources. This is a win-win-win situation. 4 wins: weaken our strength, ruin our reputation, take over our territory, and gain massive resources. Isn't this winner take all, win 4 times? Oh! This is really a win-win-win. The representatives of the nobles were a little unable to hold their nerve. He lowered his head and stopped looking at Shen Jian. Because they were afraid that if they couldn't hold it back, they would punch the fourth prince in the face. In terms of shamelessness, they are completely inferior. Soon, with the surrender of the 7 largest nobles in the south and the Duke's palace, there is no obstacle to taking over Eagle City. Shen Jian came all the way to the Duke's mansion. There are local residents everywhere along the way. They looked at the fourth prince, who was supported by a group of ghost gunmen, and walked straight towards the Duke's palace, with complicated eyes. Duke Elk died, representatives of the 7 nobles surrendered, and Eagle City changed hands. This magnificent city finally fell into the hands of the fourth prince. This made many ghost leaders who suspected that the fourth prince was overestimating his capabilities feel like they were being slapped in the face. Discussions arose one after another. The Duke is dead, and the fourth prince has become the lord of the Southern Territory. It's not that fast. Even the Duke has not completely taken over the entire Southern Territory. The fourth prince has only occupied Eagle City and is still far from taking over the entire Southern Territory. Isn't it still a matter of time? How can those small nobles be the opponent of the fourth prince, the king's division? A group of ghosts, you say something to me. The whole city was in an uproar. There are all kinds of comments. There was only one thing that no one could refute: the fourth prince was about to become the lord of the Southern Territory. The fourth prince, who was uneducated, incompetent, and synonymous with waste in the eyes of the people of the kingdom, has now become the master of the Southern Territory, ahead of all the royal heirs. To know. The king trial has only been going on for less than 2 years. The princes and princesses are still working hard to get more support from the nobles. Even the eldest prince and the second prince, who are the most optimistic among everyone, have only received the support of half of the nobles. Although their reputation is great, they are nothing more. Castles in the air. Once the local nobles no longer support it, they will be directly beaten back to their original form. Among them, the third princess with the greatest advantage has unified the high seas beyond the 4 major territories of the kingdom, but as long as she does not gain a foothold within the 4 major territories, her advantage will never be reflected. However, the fourth prince was different. What he unified was the southern border, one of the 4 major borders of the kingdom. And the second prince has greater control over the local area than the eldest prince. After all, he occupied Eagle City and became the master here by stepping on the body of Duke Elk. In this situation, the Southern Territory is unified, and all the noble power will be used by the fourth prince. Even if it is a small independent kingdom, it is more than enough. Therefore, in this trial for the king, the fourth prince jumped from the bottom to become the leader, ahead of all the princes and princesses. Every time I think about this, all the ghosts were in a daze. After enduring it for more than 10 years, he became a blockbuster. The fourth prince really exceeded everyone's expectations. His topicality is so strong that it only takes a very short time for it to spread throughout the Eli Empire. By then, the paranoid impression of the people of the kingdom towards the fourth prince will undergo earth-shaking changes, and it has been suppressed for such a long time. Once it breaks out, the fourth prince's reputation will skyrocket. He may become the most popular candidate for crown prince. At this time, the ghosts were suddenly shocked. In just 2 battles, the fourth prince's identity changed so much. He changed from the playboy and incompetence he had been before, and transformed into a heroic prince with a good heart, who endured humiliation and heavy burdens, and was decisive in killing. Is all this part of the fourth prince's plan? The ghosts were in an uproar. I just feel that Shen Jian's image is even more mysterious. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Yubuletin Chigua. Chapter 827. Time flies. The news spread like wildfire. The news that the fourth prince captured Eagle City, killed Duke Elk, and became the lord of the Southern Territory spread rapidly like a spring rain, and soon the entire Southern Territory was boiling. Many ghosts are still confused until now. I suspected that I had slept not for one night, but for several years. When they woke up, the Duke died, the Southern Territory changed hands, and the fourth prince became the uncrowned king of the Southern Territory. The news came one after another, making them dazzled and unable to react at all. And when they reacted, the entire Southern Territory almost exploded and screamed. Expressions of shock and horror were revealed on their faces. Your Highness the fourth prince, you are so humming awesome. A sigh of relief ignited the atmosphere of the scene. Who says it's not the case? I remember someone was saying a few days ago that His Royal Highness the fourth prince didn't even know he was about to die, and that the Duke would not just watch the fourth prince gain power. Now it seems that the Duke really can't stand it, so he died. You laughed at me, what a hell joke. Now those who say that His Highness the fourth prince is about to die don't know if their faces hurt. His Royal Highness the fourth prince, a man of God, has endured for more than 10 years, and now he has soared into the sky, and it is nothing but a blockbuster. It's scary. Otherwise, everything in the city is filled with monsters. Discussions arose. The ghosts were impassioned. There has been nothing worth talking about in the South for a long time. 2 years ago, there was one thing: the fourth prince's territory was located in the Southern Territory. But at that time, they saw it as a joke. There was another incident 5 days ago. The fourth prince defeated the conquest team organized by the Duke without losing a single soldier despite a 10-fold difference in strength. And today, the protagonist is still the fourth prince. He killed the largest nobleman in the Southern Territory, Duke Elk, captured this magnificent Eagle City, ruled the Southern Territory, and became the lord of the Southern Territory. At this time, people discovered that the center of the topic in the Southern Territory was always His Highness the fourth prince. Just like the first sentence, the fourth prince is so awesome. At the same time, Western Region Melo City. This is the largest city in the Western Territory. It is located within the fiefdom of the Duke of the Western Territory and is also the territory governed by the eldest prince. Duke's Palace. Chamber. The eldest prince sat at the head of the table. His long golden hair reflects golden light under the autumn sun, and his deep golden pupils are like the most dazzling orbs in the world. His eyes are long and narrow, and there is an indescribable sense of oppression when he stares at people, even if he is just sitting on an ordinary table. On the chair, he still exudes a domineering temperament. In a trance, people have the feeling that the other person is sitting on the throne and is a supreme king. This is a prince whose appearance and temperament cannot be faulted at all. Everything he says and does is consistent with the aura of a king. It will make people unknowingly believe that he is born to be the king. This is the eldest prince of the Eli Empire royal family. But at this time, the eldest prince looked very confused. It was as if he had heard something incomprehensible and was trying to digest the news. Moment. The eldest prince narrowed his eyes and asked in surprise, "You are saying that my fourth brother unified the southern territory and became the fastest expanding power among our brothers and sisters?" As soon as these words came out, all the noble members in the chamber were silent. Even the Duke of the West just opened his mouth and said nothing. After all, this is indeed true. When he first heard about this, he also didn't believe it. I don't believe that the fourth prince, who was known as a waste, actually did so many great things quietly, and even killed the Duke of the Southern Territory and unified the far south. But as time went on, more and more details came out. Especially such a big thing as the change of ownership of Eagle City, it was impossible to hide it. After investigation by his spies, the authenticity of the matter was finally confirmed. Is he a ghost? He killed the Duke of Elk in the south. Is his image of a playboy and incompetent just a disguise? In fact, he has been hiding it. He secretly developed a standard supernatural weapon that can kill top ghost kings. The 500 armed militiamen can defeat an army of powerful ghosts composed of 8 top ghost kings, 80 abyss-level ghost kings, and 800 ghost kings without any damage. Every time he said something, the atmosphere at the scene became deadly silent. Until the eldest prince clapped his hands and rebuked angrily, "Absurd, who compiled this myth? Why not just say directly that the fourth prince is a god descending to earth, and once he awakens, he wants to take back everything that belongs to him? Do you think this is a story? Got the story? Who is snooping on this information? Pull him down and kill him," the eldest prince said. That impeccable face was full of ferocity, which was extremely inconsistent with his appearance. The Duke of the Western Territory paused for a few seconds before he solemnly said, "Your Highness, the source of the news is no longer known, but the change of ownership of Eagle City is indeed true. If the Duke of the Southern Territory had not died, he would not have given up his fiefdom. Hand it over to the fourth prince." Hear this. The eldest prince looked gloomy and stared at the Duke of the West without speaking. "The Duke is saying that the past image of my fourth prince brother as a playboy and incompetent is really his disguise. Your Highness, no matter whether the fourth prince is pretending or not, the fact that he currently occupies the southern border and separates one side will not change. He is indeed ahead of you. If this trend continues, this king trial will basically come to an end." The Duke of the West side. Not only the eldest prince couldn't accept it, but he actually couldn't accept it either. According to the previous progress of the king's trial, it usually takes until the second half of the last year for the princes and princesses to spread their influence and radiation throughout the territory. If there is an heir, it will be in the 4th year or even the beginning of the 5th year. After completing this process, the others will not even be able to catch up. And this is already a judgment based on the best situation. In fact, in the past king trials, few heirs were able to spread the radiation throughout the territory during the king trials. However, the fourth prince unexpectedly broke this record. This process was completed in the second half of the 2nd year of the king trial. And it was by circumventing the support of the nobles of the Southern Territory that he took over full control of the entire Southern Territory and held the Southern Territory in his hands. This was simply impossible to see in the past. No royal heir has ever been able to attack a duke's fiefdom with the size of a territory without the support of local nobles, and still succeed. This is simply a fantasy. However, the fourth prince did it. Thoughts are spinning. The Duke of the Western region continued, "Your Highness, our top priority is to hinder the development of the fourth prince. Otherwise, the longer it takes, the greater the fourth prince's control over the southern region will be. By then, even if your highness has radiated your influence to the entire western region, not as good as the fourth prince. Hear the words. The eldest prince also reacted. A sudden start. Indeed, the advantage of occupying the southern territory is so great that even if he radiates his influence to the entire western territory, he cannot win. The only way is to cause chaos in the southern border. As long as the chaos reaches a certain level, occupying the southern territory will no longer be the fourth prince's advantage, but his disadvantage, and it will be evidence for others to impeach him. Duke, what do you have in mind? The eldest prince asked. The Duke of the Western Territory paused. If we want to cause chaos in the Southern Territory, we can't do it in a short time, but we can hold off the fourth prince first. The eldest princess was born in the Belchia family, one of the four holy families. The scythe on the head is specially responsible for judging guilty nobles, and the fourth prince killed the Duke of the Southern Territory, just within the scope of the trial of the Belchia family. Your Highness, you can send the eldest princess there. The Belchia family knows how to do the rest. Even if the eldest princess has no right to deal with the prince, she can still slow down the development of the fourth prince. The eldest prince was stunned. He hesitated slightly. Sending the princess over, isn't this too risky? The image of my fourth prince brother is hard to describe. Even if it is probably a disguise, no one knows how much this disguise has affected him after so many years. His underlying meaning was naturally that he was worried that the fourth prince would be disrespectful to his princess. Even if he didn't dare to do anything outrageous, he couldn't accept it even if it was teasing. The Duke of the Western region hated iron and said, Your Highness, if you don't want to leave the child, you won't be able to trap the wolf. Moreover, the eldest princess represents the Belchia family. She is also the princess that your highness is marrying. She is the sister-in-law of the fourth prince. With her identity, the fourth prince, how dare the prince provoke him? At most, he will suffer some bad treatment. Hear the words. The eldest prince was silent for a few seconds. The Duke is right. I thought too much. Even I can't bear the intimidating power of the four holy families, let alone the four younger brothers with an unstable foundation. I'm going to talk to the princess about this. At the same time, Southern Border Duke's mansion. Shen Jian stepped into this place. All the attendants and servants in the Duke's palace were driven out, kneeling on the ground to welcome the new owner. This group of people also included a Chinese man with the ID Fang Xiu. He knelt in an inconspicuous place, secretly staring ahead with his peripheral vision, and watching the messages on the chat interface. Soon, a figure walked by. Fang Xiu took a careful look. This man had blonde hair and golden eyes, and his handsome face was like the most perfect masterpiece from heaven. The smile at the corner of his mouth made many maids dazzle. He knows. This person is the fourth prince. It was the new Lord of the South who killed Duke Elk and captured Eagle City. Sudden. His eyes fell on a blood-stained hemp rope on the fourth prince's wrist. The blood-stained hemp rope stood up out of thin air, ignoring gravity and fluttering randomly on the fourth prince's wrist. This scene. It made him a little strange. It feels like I have seen this kind of decoration somewhere. The more he looked, the more familiar it seemed to him. Until you lift your head completely. The next second, his face froze. It was like seeing something unimaginable. Player, King Yama. Level 64. Player. The fourth prince is a player. That's what I thought. The player with the ID Fang Xiu suddenly realized that the moment he cast his gaze, the fourth prince also set his gaze on him at the right time. That moment, he fell into an ice cave. End of chapter.